The Desert Island Discs with Flavia on Capital FM. Fresh hits for Uganda.
Welcome to Desert Island Discs. Has it been 3 years, 4 years ago? When did you join the party?
Well, we were initially People Power, as you know.
Yes.
From around 2018.
Yes.
But the party was formed in 2020.
2020. So for the last years, you have become a very prominent face and voice. So I'm probably one of the few people who before that did not know you, or did not know your face, did not know anything about you and got to know you. So this is going to be interesting. I'm going to actually get to know you for the first time. Welcome to the show. Is this your first profile interview?
No, I've actually been profiled before.
Yeah.
By a local Luganda TV.
Luganda.
Yeah.
You speak good Luganda?
I try. These days I speak better Luganda than Runyankole.
These days.
For that matter, yeah.
You have had to learn on the job. Eh?
Yeah, definitely.
Wow. We normally start the show by saying go anywhere in your childhood and drop us there to start your story.
Well, I can just say that I had a very tough childhood like many other Ugandans, many other Ugandan children in this country. And so what I remember, for example, the part that was really tough is when I was in primary school and we had to, go and fetch firewood in order to qualify for food. So
Where was home?
I grew up in Mbarara. My father was working as a veterinary officer in Mbarara, so that's where I was born and raised. And when he passed on in 1998, then I had to go to a school called Kanyarieru Primary School in Chirura district. Yes. So that's where I actually had most of the formative years. I was in P4 and I was there up to P7 and I also stayed there up to senior 4.
Oh, wow.
But because, the conditions were tough, we had to go and fetch, logs of firewood in order to qualify for food. And
to qualify for food.
Yeah, you just go bring a very big piece of wood and then you just join the line for food. So
and this is at home?
No, this was at school. Okay. I was in a boarding school. So,
right.
Yeah,
so if you didn't fetch the firewood, what would
then you don't eat.
Oh, come on.
But the school also needed the firewood to be able to cook.
So they said the 2 birds, 1 stone.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And this didn't matter what age you were?
It didn't matter. We were very, very young at the time. And, because it was a village school, sometimes we would go hunting, sometimes, gathering fruits and that kind of thing. So that is what I remember about my childhood. Some of the
and for someone who's from still that district of Chirura, there's been some development, but you can still tell a bit of, I wouldn't want to use the word backwardness before I'm fetched by my grandfather. So let me move from that word. And at home, so before dad passed. So first of all, it's you and a couple of siblings, or it's...
Yeah, so my father had other children before us, but for my mother, we were 5.
5.
And that's 3 boys and 2 girls, as it were. And I'm the 4th born, so second last.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
You're the baby. Babies get ignored.
Not at all. I was the second last, but we were treated equally in many ways. And especially, when you lose a parent at a young age, you almost have to automatically grow. And look at this situation where you go to a boarding school at that age. So it was a very, very tough childhood.
When you say a veterinary doctor, even today, they make some good money. So for me, back in the day, I assume but this was a well-off family, at least average, middle income. But life clearly changed when dad passed.
We were having a very, very good childhood until dad passed away.
That point.
Yeah, because I went to a nursery school, a good one at that. Then I went to a primary school called Shalom Keben in Mbarara, and up to P3 when he passed on, and then
life changed.
Then life changed fundamentally. We're having this kind of childhood where you wake up to bread and blue band and that kind of thing, and all that changed. You have to move from blue band and bread to yams and cassava,
That reminds me of my childhood because that happened when my father passed on.
Yeah.
But also for me, I always tell people that for me, mine didn't drastically change because it had to. It changed because African society back in the day is that your father's people, if there was anything to own, sort of took over that, not your mother, who then had to take care of you. So it was always that the children either had to go with uncle so-and-so, auntie so-and-so, and take care of them, or you stay with your mother, who then, has to fight through life. Yeah. So I don't know who. Did you end up with aunties, uncles, or you stayed with mom?
We stayed with mom, and that was one of the challenges. Of course, the larger family of my father, put a caveat on his pension. Because they said, the other children, the other family members
before
who are beneficiaries, so they should all be taking a portion of this. And my mother said no. So then there was a caveat. Yeah. So for many years, we were not getting any money. My mother, before my father passed on, was doing a business which later collapsed. So it was a real struggle.
Yeah.
It was a very tough time.
Okay, I want to hear your first song choice at this point.
Kankutendereze by Message Semakula.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of...
Discs with Flavia on Capital FM. Fresh hits for Uganda.
It's Desert Island Discs. I have David Lewis Rubongoya. Does anybody ever say your name right? How do you say it?
You actually said it right.
Okay.
Rubongoya is the name, except that many people here like to call me Rubongoya, all sorts
the
of...
R is moved to an L.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes people, instead of the O, they say E, Rubongoya, and that kind of thing.
Wow,
so.
I haven't had that one.
But I'm
Interesting.
Rubongoya,
Yes.
which is actually not my name. It's my father's name. I just adopted it. It's not my official name.
When you were younger, what were you using in school?
So my name is David Lewis. My father was interesting because he called all of us, the three boys he had, English names only. So my elder brother who passed on was Welcome William. The other is Charles Edinburgh. And then me, David Lewis. Yeah.
So you took his name later on in life?
I took the name. I'm just using it. I haven't officially taken it over.
So your documents still today?
Yeah. If you look at my national ID or everything, it's just David Lewis.
Your passport reads David Lewis?
Yeah. So now, of course, most people know me by Rubongoya, and people, every time I give someone the ID, they say, where is the other name? They're always looking for that other name.
But why choose that? You could have just gone with David Lewis and accepted that.
Later on in life, when I had an opportunity to go to Harvard, I was challenged because I found that, all these other students I was with had names that identify where they come from.
Yes.
Whether it is a person from Spain, Japan, wherever. So I said, I cannot be David Lewis because then, I'm not an Englishman. So I actually did a poll on Facebook. I put a couple of names, including Rubongoya and other names, because I was from this religious background. Many of them were religious in nature. And people said, call yourself this. I did a Facebook post saying I need to adopt a local name.
Yes.
But of course, later on, I thought that I should, keep the legacy of my father alive, and then decided to adopt Rubongoya.
Right. I like that. I don't know if that talks more about the relationship you had with your dad, even if it was for a short while. How was that relationship?
My father was, in many ways, like me when I look at myself.
Right.
Very busy. He was always on the move, but had a very, very deep love for his family.
Right.
And so he would really, every day he comes back, he has to bring something for you.
Yeah.
And he sings for you. When he's eating, you sit there. And then he, passes on pieces of meat over to you and that kind of thing. So that's the kind of relationship we had.
And mom?
Mom was like a police officer at the time. We were always looking at neighbors that where the father is very, good or nice to kids, and
the other one is the opposite.
The other one is the opposite. So my mother was a tough one, and I think it was very, very, very good for us.
She had to be.
Yeah. It was very, very important, and now I appreciate her very, very much.
She's still alive?
She's still alive by the grace of God.
Amen.
Yeah.
It's a good relationship today.
Oh, very, very good. I mean, I say that not to say that we had a terrible relationship,
of course. Yeah.
But like, she was a stickler to discipline. She was a disciplinarian. She had a rule. Like six strokes. So if
she would actually go through with this.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when we were in primary school and all that. And then she would come, and if you've messed up, 6 canes are waiting for you. She was tough, but I see the value in that.
Now,
it really helped us a lot.
So most of your primary education, you were in the village. Did you continue with that in secondary school? Yeah,
for O-level, I was still in a school called Lekimboro Secondary School, which is again in Chilhura district.
Yeah.
God helped me because I was performing well. I think throughout primary school, I was always the first or second in class, and that went on even in O-level. But then later on, I had to go to another school in Bushenyi called Nganwa High School, where I was for my A-level.
Okay. And I don't know much, because I don't really think I know many people from Nganwa. What kind of school is it?
Nganwa is a single-sex school, boys' school, and it has had its own challenges now, but it was a very good school, one of the best in Western Uganda. In terms of performance, academic performance, but also because it's in a metropolitan area, in sort of a town, people used to run out of school. Actually, it's interesting that the first time I had at Nganwa High School, I was dismissed, I was expelled from school.
Suspended, expelled?
Expelled.
Yeesh.
I was expelled, but then because I was the best in class, I had 25 points that semester. They had to invite me back, to call me back.
So they expelled you right before the exam results came back?
You know, when you have the last school assembly and then they read the best students and then you go home on the report card, dismissed for attending a wedding without permission.
But now whose wedding was that really?
It was a neighbor. Like I said, this was a town school. So there was a wedding which we went, all of us, and attended, and then they dismissed many people.
You just went to eat food?
Yeah. But then the following day when I went to school and I was all distraught and feeling very sad, the headmaster called my mom and said this student should come back because he was the best in class.
So their hands were tied. That's not a good place to be. That's not a good place to be.
Yeah.
So at this point, even if it was the village setting, dad has passed on, life is like that. Did David Lewis know what kind of life he wanted? Forget the reality he was living in, you know, who he wanted to be and what he wanted to aspire to. Did you already know at that point?
I think so. Incidentally, one, I grew up as in a very, very deeply Christian background. So I was actually the chairperson of Scripture Union, even in primary school, in secondary school. And even when I went to A-level, I was deeply involved with Scripture Union. I used to go around preaching. Sometime on holiday, I would even go to the streets and preach. Yeah. I was always... so I had faith. And so I was always moved by faith to believe in better things. But also, because of the school I grew up in, it was a highly politicized environment. If you know that school, many of the people who study there are children of former soldiers, veterans, blah, 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 that kind of thing. So I started reading books about these people when I was young. I remember reading Sowing the Mustard Seed in primary school, What is Africa's Problem, and those kinds of things. So I would say that I was politicized at a very, very young age. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so you're reading them intrigued, not necessarily reading them because, you know, so the interest came after you were reading, after you were exposed to it. So you leave high school, you go to Makerere.
I go to Makerere.
Yeah, and you choose law.
Yeah. In secondary school, actually, if you look at the politicization even, I was a student's leader all through. For example, in primary, I was a prefect. In O-level, I was a prefect. In A-level, I became the head prefect of Ngano High School.
Yeah.
And also became the president of the, students leaders of Bushenyi, and then vice president of Western Region. And then when I came to campus, I became a class president, first at Makerere Law School, then became the president of the Law Society, and went on to become a guild speaker at Makerere.
Do we misunderstand you when some people in the media, I think ever since, people power into NUP, people regard you as very reserved and very quiet. And when I hear you were prefect of this, prefect, head prefect, leader, I'm like, nobody just goes to such positions quietly because you have to speak up. Yeah. You have to be able to talk to people. You have to be able to get out of your shell. So where do people misunderstand and say you're very reserved?
For me, it's always been about track record and service. I think I speak more through action than through words. So if you see all the leadership roles I've taken on previously and currently, I think I strive to leave a difference. And not so much about what I say, not so much about, some people say, why is he not arrested? Why is he not? I know that time.
Why are you not being violent or arguing? Yeah.
But, we are different naturally. And sometimes you find that you want to engage intellectually, but of course, like I said, there are times when you cannot, even if you're not violent with the kind of system we have, where these people come and violently confront you.
Violence finds you.
Where violence finds you, like during the presidential campaigns when I nearly died in Mbale because of the violence that was brought upon us. So I think I'm not necessarily reserved. I was a preacher, for example, and when I get a microphone to speak, I will speak loudly and assertively. But I think I'm always trying to work very hard
versus talk.
Yeah.
Right, understood. So law, that was an obvious choice. I mean, if you were reading books about leaders, that's something they were always going for because you either had political science or you had law to go for. So it was obvious. Yeah. You were a smart kid, so that wasn't a hard course to do.
It wasn't a hard course to do, but of course, when you come from those quote-unquote village schools, you're sort of intimidated.
Right.
So I came to law school, and you find kids from Budo, from Chitende, from wherever, and you're trying to find your foot. But what was interesting was, again at law school I started performing very well.
I was about to say, did you beat all of them?
I beat many of them, I would say. And of course, by the time of graduation, I was among the best in my class.
Yeah.
And that made me even fight more for justice, social justice. Because I realized that, many kids are very brilliant. They are out there in Kapelebyong, in Karamoja, wherever, but they just don't get equal opportunities at education. Which is why I think the idea of having a law pre-entry so that, there is fairness across the board is good. Because previously they would say those who have 24 points, 23 points, and those are likely going to be from the best schools. And yet you find that there's someone from a school deep down in the village who actually is brilliant and can do very well as a lawyer.
But if they were brilliant, will they not achieve the same points, for example?
Of course not.
Yeah.
I think, for example, even when I said I was the best, we were only 2 people in first grade in primary school and at O level, but I did not perform well. You would find that I'm always, for example, I had 12, I think, at P7, but I believe if I was in a better school,
resources, different environment,
the teachers, the nature of teachers you have, access to resources. Like I said, we used to go to look for fetch firewood in order for you to eat. But if you're from a school where all that is there, you have more time to read, access to information, and all these other factors.
You'd probably beat the best here if you were in the same environment.
If I was in the same environment.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's your second song choice?
I will go with Mama. We talked about my mom, remember?
Yes.
So I'll go with Mama by Dax Vibes and Jim Nola. Yeah.
Will be my first time listening to that.
Oh, it's a very interesting song. Talking about the struggles
our mothers go through.
And so I think I'll go with that.
Dax Vibes.
And Jim Nola.
My first time, getting to even know that song existed. So thank you for introducing me to that. Sometimes when people I used to get flack for that, especially being in media, being raised by a single parent and a single mother.
Yeah.
At that, there's an assumption that we might not turn out well because we lack father figures or, that sort of thing. My mother was very intentional with, certain uncles or certain people in society to be that or to play that part for me. Yeah. Did you have any of those people growing up who were father figures in one way or another, even if it was a mentor in school or somebody who just held your hand?
Yeah, actually, interesting. There's a gentleman called Pastor Willie Tumuine. He has a church in Barara, Holy Spirit Fire Church. And I think he stepped in as a father.
Right.
Really, really, really contributed a lot to what I have become because he taught us about faith. So when my father died, of course, what normally happens. You try so many things, many things, trying to find a way out.
Yeah.
And then we chanced upon this church. Then we go in, become born again, and that kind of thing. So that man, in many ways, shaped me into the person that I am.
Right.
So he used to tell us 3 principles. If I can just speak about them very briefly: Sabanyo, Kolanyo, Wayonyo. Work very hard. Pray hard and give so much. Yeah. And I grew up thinking about these principles that pray so hard, work very hard,
and give.
And give. Be generous.
And you still live by those principles?
I do. I try my best to live by those principles.
Everyone who went to Makerere and took some sort of leadership position always gives you their own version of what Makerere was, the fire that was, especially anybody who gets into some service or political life.
Yeah.
How would you describe your time there?
I think I was different in the sense that, again, I was very interested in services, in trying to serve the people, as opposed to, there are activist leaders and also leaders who are just service-oriented. And both are important and all have their place. So I remember the closest I came to, activism was when I organized the General Assembly at the law school. I invited the Vice Chancellor and others and said, let's talk about these issues. And good enough, they came. I was about to say, did they show up? Yeah. They showed up. There was Professor Bariamuleba at the time as the Vice Chancellor and others. And we came and raised, and we gave an ultimatum that if these issues are not addressed, we shall go on strike as students. Good enough, some of the issues which we were raising at the time were sorted, and so there was no need for to go on with the plans of a strike.
Would you have gone ahead with the strike?
Yes, definitely. When you're in a leadership position, sometimes it's more about what your people want,
right?
What these people are pushing you to do. Because at the time they had introduced a 60% thing, that you must pay 60%
before you start
within the 6th week or whatever. And students were very angry about it.
True.
And here I was as the president of Makerere Law Society, and I needed to push these things. And when I became guild speaker, one of the incidents that happened was one of the GRCs, who's like an MP in the government, came and said, we want to move a motion of censure against the guild president, who was Carter Ivan at the time. And being the lawyer in making that I was, I said, okay, let's have a guild session and listen to the petition and people vote on it.
Yeah.
But the Makerere politics, then Carter and the team went behind there and organized a bunch of other students.
Oh, wow.
One of them happens to be my close friend now. And they came with, sticks and all that, disorganized the GRC session, and the motion fell flat from there. So you can see where some of the things we see in leadership come from.
You're always trying to look for the calm way out.
Yeah.
Or the amicable way out of the situation. You spoke about going to Harvard.
Yeah.
That was after Makerere University, so you graduate and you want to what? Upgrade? Was it immediately after?
It was not immediate. It was almost immediate after, because after Makerere I went to LDC.
Right.
For the diploma in legal practice. Yeah. And while I was there, I applied to Harvard. I applied to another university called McGill in Canada. And I was very, very lucky. One morning I woke up to an email saying you've been actually accepted to Harvard, which is extremely competitive, as you know. I did not complete my LDC exams because I had to first go to Harvard, and then I came back in the middle. While I was at Harvard, I asked for a week off. I came, did LDC final exams, and went back.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've not had a part of this life where you're working. Most of us were at campus working and studying. You weren't doing that.
No, I was a students leader, like I said, for most of the time.
So that sort of helped.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to imagine if you come from a place where no one is giving you or handing you money, how are you able to pay through school? How are you or were you on sponsorship?
I was on sponsorship, actually.
Yeah.
But later on, I did clerkship, of course, here and there. But I was also a students leader, and every once in a while you get these opportunities where you're able to really survive. But I would also say that at Makerere, I did not have a lavish lifestyle.
Where you needed a lot of money.
Where I needed a lot of money. I was staying in Chikoni at some time, at some point in Chikumi, where you just go and get, stuff.
I've not experienced it, but I'm told for each 100 shillings, you get something.
That was the situation then, because it has changed now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you'd go Chikumi and there's posho for 100, beans for 100, and that kind of thing. That's why it's called Chikumi.
Brilliant idea. Whoever started that needs to have really patented it, because that's brilliant.
It was very brilliant.
Yeah, so you go to Harvard and then midway come back to finish LDC exams, then go back.
And then go back
to Harvard.
To finish my course.
But what did you want to be? I get leadership, but were you eyeing something in particular?
First of all, I was looking up to some people like Professor Joe Loka Onyango, Dr. Businje Kabumba, who had just returned from Harvard at the time.
Right.
And these are people that you look up to, very brilliant submissions, very brilliant thoughts and arguments. So those in a way inspired me actually to apply, to want to do my master's immediately after. But I always want to get the best that I can. So why not apply to Harvard and try to get that kind of education? So
that adds something, right? It's not people don't, because people assume when you say I went to Harvard, automatically people respect you. But for you who's actually done it, been there, does it add something for real as clout in the world?
It does so much. Not so much in terms of the knowledge you get actually.
Really?
But in terms of the connections you make, in terms of the world view that you get. I think for me going to Harvard was this moment of almost getting a fresh brain, because you've grown up in the kinds of schools I told you, you've come to Makerere, the situation is almost similar. For example, I was so much an ardent fan of the NRA regime. I was
really?
Yeah, I was always organizing meetings, attended by General Museveni, by all these people, as a guild leader and all that. But one of the things that happened to me when I went to Harvard, of course, it gives you a fresh understanding of justice, of human rights. So even when I was passionate about human rights, I did not appreciate it in its full
context.
Context, exactly.
Yeah. Everyone who has veered away from the NRM, as we know it today, has their own reasons why, in the first place, they believed in NRM. What was the positive you saw before the world view that you got later on at Harvard?
Positive I saw as in writing. You see, these people wrote very good documents.
Mm-hmm.
And if you read Sowing the Mustard Seed, you see people who were really well-intentioned.
Mm-hmm.
There's a book called Mission to Freedom, which I also read at a young age. And when you read about it, they're talking about corruption. Leaders should not use public offices for their personal gain. Africa's problem is leaders who overstay in power. In 2016, I said, let me vote for this man for the very last time.
Okay.
After he had said that he was never going to run beyond 75 years. So I thought, okay, this is the last time I'm doing this. I don't agree with most of the policies at this point, but because of stability and all that, we'll see a change. And of course, that was not to be. Then they started talking about removing the age limit and all that. So I had to, completely separate.
Switch.
Yeah,
right.
From them.
What's your third song choice?
Now that we've spoken about some of the factors that shaped my decisions, I think I would go for a song by Bobby Wine called Chikomando.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Of all the options.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's one of the songs I love most about it.
Okay.
It speaks to hard work, it speaks to determination and many of the things.
Desert Island Discs with Flavia on Capital FM. Fresh hits for Uganda.
It's Desert Island Discs. David Lewis, and now he has adopted his father's name, David Lewis Rubongoya. And your third choice was Bobby Wine's Chikomando.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the option anyone would have expected, but it's good music.
Yeah.
You are the Secretary General of, now it's the National Unity Platform, NUP, as many people would call it. And actually, the song we just listened to, Bobby Wine, he is the president of the party.
Yeah.
Where do the paths cross for you? And then it was People Power, right? When and what are the circumstances where your paths cross?
So when I came back, I became a lecturer at two universities. That's the International University of East Africa. Yeah. I also got a job at Cavendish and started teaching, and a couple of other things that I was doing at the time.
Right.
So one day I moved into the dean's office and he said, the president is in class. And I said, which president? I didn't know who he meant. He said, Bobby Wine. So I go to my class that evening and find our president, Chagulanyi Sentam, seated
in class.
In class.
Yes.
And of course, I was starstruck, but I had to pretend that I'm not.
Right.
As any.
Had you liked his music before?
I was not so much a ghetto person, so to say. So I knew him as a ghetto president, and he was also a philanthropist doing all these things. So I liked him at that level, although we had never interacted or we had never met.
So at this time it was lecturer to student. That was the relationship.
Student relationship.
Yeah.
You know, and I started teaching him, and later on I started noticing certain things about him. First of all, my classes, which is something I learned at Harvard, because, you know, here in Uganda we do a lot of theory. But one of the things you see about American education is that they do a lot of practical, but also a lot of thought, intriguing education. So a lecturer will come, a professor will come into class and ask you really to exercise your brain. To
trigger you to think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so that's something I brought, and then we started having very intense debates about what was going on. And I found the Honorable Chagulanyi to be extremely intelligent, to be extremely knowledgeable about what was going on.
Interesting.
So that is, we were student, lecturer. Then one time he calls me and says, you know what, I'm not going to be able to attend your class because I have a show on the weekend. I didn't even know where I got my number from. Okay. But I found that very respectful because, you know, many students will just go and disappear and you don't even get to see them. So one time he calls me and invites me for a show. He was doing a show at Usavala. Aida because Chagulanyi for that matter. I spoke with some lawyer friends of mine, and then we said, let's go and attend the show. Yeah. But when I went there, I was struck by the numbers of people who were there. And of course, he used his music to talk about the injustices that were going on, even when he was not into politics. And that again registered. So we started having discussions about what is going on in the country, what can we do. Here I was as a lecturer, always speaking about these things. He was here as a singer, singing about them. So he said, you know what, let's do something about it. Let's just not talk about it and sing about it.
He wasn't MP at the time.
He wasn't MP at the time. And so that's how we started coming up with these ideas. Then when the seat fell vacant in Chadondo, of course he told me about it, and I encouraged him. And even the Chadondo campaigns, I went there, saw what was going on, saw the energy, the vibe. When they arrested him, he said, let's show them that people power is stronger than the people in power.
Oh, okay.
And he said that, and it became a
catchy.
frenzy. It was catching. After the campaigns, and he won, you know, with a huge percentage. People started asking him, what next, what next, what next, what next. So we had engagements. Then one of the things we did was to come up as a group of people. He had met different people in different spaces. I also knew some people from different spaces. So we came together as a team. We had a retreat where we
you guys were serious about this.
Yeah, of course. We had a retreat. We were very deliberate and said, you know, we need to do something about what's going on in the country. And then at the time we said, should we form a party or be a social movement? Should we do this or this? Many discussions we had. And then from there, that's how the People Power movement started. There's a time, for example, we were moving in his car, in a Tundra vehicle at the time, when we were starting out to know each other and work on these ideas. And so he explained to me the economy of a woman who sells buto, cooking oil. I was like, wow, this is something I had never thought about. So you found that he had a very, very good understanding of the common people. Right. And then I realized why the common people loved him a lot.
Gravitated towards him.
Yeah, because he was telling me, mchala wabuto ajigula bwati, you know, so he's able to tell you that this is the profit she will make to be able to take the children to school, for example, to be able to do this, and of course the struggles which they go through. How can we make life better for them, easier, reducing taxes and that kind of thing. So which stories you don't hear many celebrities talk about. Yeah, but for him, he was always very, very clear and intentional about talking about the plight of the common people. I guess also because he had lived it for so long. So definitely, yeah.
Knew it. I think there was an assumption by people that you were just handpicked somewhere in the middle of the struggle, as you guys call it, and thrown into a position. Yet from the story you are weaving is that you both had different perspectives, but met, you know, into one and made it something. Yeah. Isn't it hard to then decide who is for us and who's against us when you're building from ground up? Because I mean, when you read the Mustard Seed and all of that, when you were reading about the NRM, everybody was having one clear goal, and people were pretty much the same then and said, let's all go to war. Yeah. Is it the same energy when you're getting the right people to be in a party like yours?
No, it's definitely different. Because you see, military struggle is different from a political struggle that we're involved in. Because you look at these guerrillas, they had, if you mess up, they execute you. They put you in ndachi. They do all sorts of things in terms of punishment. So there's a strict code of discipline, and you don't have access to your phones, your family, and all that kind of thing. But in this kind of political environment, you meet all sorts of people. You're just actually relying on the energy which someone brings.
Gives you,
If your actions and words support what we are doing, the objectives that we are involved in, then you're a comrade.
Right.
But once we start seeing you veer off what we are trying to do, then of course we start saying, Labisa, this person is no longer with us.
Not does it take, would it take to change everything that we believe is not right about our country? Because you know how long a term of office is.
Yeah. No, I think first of all, change does not really come in quickly. It takes a bit of time, especially if you have a country that is messed up like we are right now, with all institutions under capture. So you just need to set priorities. For example, if we came to power today, some of the things that we would begin with would be education and healthcare. And I think that is very easy to fix.
Has there been a day or a time, even if it was behind the scenes and we never got to know, where there was a moment of dialogue between NUP and the NRM?
No, we've not had a dialogue.
Have you asked for one?
No, we have not. They have, asked for it, but they have not asked for a genuine dialogue. They have asked for iPod, for example, you know that?
Yes.
And we've said that clearly you cannot put your boot on my neck and say, let's dialogue. We believe that dialogue should be among equals. It should be people who are free to sit on the table and say, let's discuss these things that are going wrong in this country.
And you don't believe that would happen? No,
General Museveni and his people believe in co-optation. So some people have approached me and said, what do you want? Jangu tukuwa minister. Jangu tukuwe yo billion.
And that's not tempting, yeah?
It's because I have a higher calling and a higher goal. So every time people come up with that, I say, you know what? The dialogue we are interested in, it's not that we are not looking at the need of dialogue. It would be very good for us to have a dialogue as a country. But let it be a genuine dialogue. Let it be transparent. Let it not be kukusa as if you're just going to sit somewhere and strike a deal. It shouldn't be a deal. It should be a discussion that is transparent, that is open, that is genuine and well-intentioned. And we've said the first agenda item for that dialogue should be transition. How do we transit from this regime to a government which will, from a military regime to a democratic government? Those are some of the conditions we've put in place, and we've written down our view of dialogue that should be happening in this country.
I wonder, because you obviously, we're in a generation where there's social media, there's conversations, you're on the pulse of what's being said by the public. I mean, after all, you do believe in people power.
Yeah.
There's sides. There are those who are absolutely devoutly loyal to you guys and won't hear a thing that's different from that. And then those who absolutely question everything about NUP and will say things like perhaps some of your members are in cahoots with NRM, or some of your members are earning money a certain way, or some of, this and that, and they'll say it. Do you ever strive to say, maybe this allegation, we should tank it before it rises? Or even if it has risen, let's fight it? Or do you just move on and let it slide?
No, we believe in time. I personally believe in time.
Right.
I believe in time. I believe that time reveals everything. And time will exonerate those who are actually right, and it will condemn those who are not right. So for me, I like to give things time. And that's one thing that I've actually learned from our president and his wife, and how they normally let some things go on. People will say this, but time proves them right all the time, because you cannot keep fighting everything. Now, especially in the age of social media, you remember during the election, Twitter shut down very many bots of the regime which were there to abuse NUP and call it names. So like those people, they run social media accounts where every day they'll be bringing this allegation against NUP. They say this, they say that. So, and you cannot really keep responding to that all the time. So that's one of the challenges you have. But we continue focusing on majoring on the major and choosing to minor on the minors.
That's a challenge that is from outside in.
Yeah.
Those are easy to deal with because then you can, like you said, choose to ignore.
Yeah.
But there are challenges that are from in.
Yeah.
As a party, obviously, you've now known what all the other parties have gone through.
Yeah.
Is there any challenge you might want to share with us?
Of course, like I said, and yesterday I was thinking about writing a piece about it, how the regime has survived. They use so many tricks.
Right.
One of them is propaganda, sponsored propaganda. But the other, which the regime has mastered, is to use human greed. To say people are inherently greedy and therefore we are going to compromise as many as we can. And that's a challenge that you keep getting.
Right.
Leaders, like I was saying, you have a member of parliament elected under NUP, and you find the person saying something completely different. The person says this today, tomorrow they are saying something else. So that's a challenge. But like you said, it's not the first time we are not the first party facing this. FDC has gone through this. DP, when it was still truly in the opposition, faced similar challenges and all that. And I believe we shall continue to work hard and overcome these challenges.
It doesn't shake the party when you see a few people start to accept or be triggered by the greed?
It doesn't shake the idea.
Okay.
You can bribe as many people as you want. You can compromise. Even me today, if they came and compromised me, the idea which the people of Uganda are standing on will still remain. Even if our president or whoever gets compromised, the idea cannot die. Because the idea is that people deserve better. If I get $1 billion, for example, and go and sell out, will that change the lives of the people of Karamoja? Will it change the people who are suffering down in Chikubo, or the young people who are unemployed? So, and as long as those issues remain, the people will continue agitating for change. For us, we are just the vanguards of this revolution. But tomorrow they could, if we decide to veer off the path, the people will replace us with others. And we'll start following another person who actually stands by those ideas. And that's why we are constantly checked. That's why we are constantly reminded that we are not in this for good. We are here to safeguard the revolution of the people of Uganda for a better life and for better governance.
As I hear you say that, you're trying to tell me that NUP is able to survive beyond the name Bobby Wine, beyond David Lewis, beyond every other.
It is able to, and that's why we're working very hard. You saw us amend our constitution recently, put term limits to establish institutions, strong departments and all that, because we want our party to be able to survive, to be there beyond ourselves who are there now. Right.
You're not somebody who's approaching their 60s that I'm going to ask, what's this next phase of life going to hold for you? You could potentially become a president here in the country at some point.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Yeah,
maybe. But for now, let's first ensure that our president Kyagulanyi becomes president of Uganda, because I believe he won the election and he was elected but rigged out. So
and you could have been vice president,
maybe, or even anything else, because it's really not about the position you hold. It's about what you're able to do for the people and to serve them and make sure that their lives improve for the better.
Right. As we wrap, being in the younger generation and also being in a party that serves and has a lot of young people, what excites you about seeing young Ugandans, whether it's their intelligence, their energy, how they approach things? Let's go away from people who think it's a time bomb to have young people anywhere because of their excitement. And Nora, what have you learned from the young generation that excites you?
Yeah, let me just talk about the ghetto people. First of all, I grew up in a very different setting from these people that I now work with mostly. And I can tell you that they are such an interesting group of people.
Right.
How I wish people come and interact with them, because they are always misunderstood. People think, in the ghettos they are just thieves, they are hooligans, they are thugs. But what I learned is that there is more thuggery in parliament than in the ghettos. There is more thuggery in cabinet than in the ghettos. These are very hardworking people, first of all. They are trustworthy. Many of them, sometimes when they are stealing phones and whatever, some of them who do that stuff, it's actually because of the conditions they go through. Someone has not eaten a meal for all these days and then they end up there. But I found that many of them are entrepreneurial, they are ingenious, they are able to, they are innovative, which is a side that many people don't get to see. And when I came to the ghettos for the first time, our president brought me in Mpola, like gradually.
Right.
Then I started interacting with these people, and I found them to be people who actually have families, who respect their wives, who have a lot of, and if they are women, who respect their husbands. So it's different when you're looking at them from outside. From outside. And I think that explains majority of the people of Uganda. They are entrepreneurial, they are good people. Ugandans, we are known to be very hospitable. Yes. So I think we are good people. Just give us chances, make sure we have jobs, make sure these young people have opportunities, and then you'll see the magic that they can be.
Wow. Well, thank you for making time for Desert Island Discs. I want to hear your final song.
Prisoner by Lucky Dube.
Thank you so much, David Lewis Rubongoya, for coming to Desert Island Discs.
I'm very honored, and thank you so much, and greetings to all.
On Capital FM, fresh hits for Uganda.